In today's show, we have another multi-topic episode where first we discuss, should prisons start charging inmates rent? And secondly, we discuss, would the world be a safer place if all nukes from all countries were destroyed?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Taya Boya. Taya, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? As you're beginning to find out, as life is showing you that it has been right all along. The lucky ones die first.
I don't intend to go at any time soon, by the way. Although I am a bit apprehensive about
a bit fragile.
Yes,
Poor
indeed,
guy.
indeed.
Yes.
The audience members who are watching on here, if you see me wince, it's because I am in pain.
Poor
I'm
guy.
due an operation at the end of the month, and yeah, I'll leave it there. And so I'll be uncomfortable occasionally during this, but I will soldier on as I try to keep my upbeat attitude with
Yes,
my
optimism.
colleague.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You're the optimist.
Yes, and come on, say hello to our audience. You can still do that.
Hello, Lee.
Oh,
And hello, Tiffany. Thank you both for
you're only
supporting
highlighting
me.
the two people that actually agree with you.
Thank you both for supporting me on our Facebook group called
yes.
TNT Talkers. I hope more of our listeners join in the conversation there, where we can have some good old ding dongs and so on and so forth. And those two people in particular, yes, I want to say hello to them. As for the rest of you, what else?
This group gives you the opportunity to chat with us directly, or mainly Tyre, who's on there, and respond. So yeah, feel free to jump on and comment for any of the topics that he suggests on there. He likes a bit of a ding dong, so everybody is welcome. It's an open group, so anybody can join from anywhere. So please do so. Right, on with today's show. Now, time permitting, we've got a couple of topics. It's a multi-topic episode, and we'll see how we progress throughout the show. But the first topic we want to discuss is a bit controversial. It's, should prisons charge inmates rent? Now, Tyre, these were your topics. So do you want to kick off as to what your views are on this particular topic?
Yeah, I came across this. Someone was just mentioned on the internet. I thought, hang on, that's a really brilliant idea. Yes, we should. Housing prisoners costs the state a lot of money. And why should it? I mean, you're living rent-free, essentially. You're being fed 3 times a day, possibly with tea breaks and whatnot. Who knows what the British system has deteriorated to. So why should we foot the bill? You shouldn't ever benefit from your wrongdoing, from your misdemeanor, from your criminality. So yeah, you go to prison, you'll have to pay rent. You have to pay room and board, even not just rent. You have to pay for your food as well.
But how could they do that? I mean, the only way, I mean, personally, from my point of view, I don't think that this is a workable solution. I know there are, in our good friends in the States, there are some US states that actually do this already. It's very controversial. It's called pay to stay. So the prisons are obviously privately run in the States. There aren't any in the UK that are. But so they're obviously commercial entities in a way, and they put this burden on their inmates to pay, obviously not then while they're serving their sentence, but after. Now, I don't see how that's even feasible unless you do it. You're actually earning the prison money based on your labor. So the prisoners are doing something then and there for the prison in order for them to stay in custody.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to not charge them until after they've left, depending on the term they've served, to me, I don't see that workable.
Yes, the word lamb was created for this. LAM. To go on the lam, which is to go missing. It just, if anybody tried to come after me for their money, for me to pay them back for having imprisoned me, I think they'll find that I've gone on the lam, and I'm not going to be around to pay them their stinking money. What? And then if you want to come and imprison me all over again, you're never going to get any flipping money off me. It doesn't make any sense. No, that is a ridiculous system. It's actually a form of, in my opinion, some kind of slavery, because now that you're a free man or woman, you should be free. You've paid your debt to society. Just live your life now. So I'm not in favor of that at all. I think you should pay whilst you are in prison. So
Okay.
every day you're in prison, you need to work
Yes.
for the prison and pay, and that your earnings pay your room and board, or at least offset your room and board.
But then the question is always asked, why are people in prison anyway? Is it to be rehabilitated, or is it to keep them away from society at large because they're having to pay a price, and the price is their removal of freedom?
Well, we can offer them a tire alternative. If you don't want to pay, we can cut your head off and not have any more problems with you. So it's really up to you. It to be put to you at the time. Say, well, we have brought back the guillotine. If you feel that we're being unfair to you somehow, because you've been a nuisance to us in society, we're putting you in prison so that you A, learn a lesson, and B, we can get a breather from your misdemeanors. But if you feel that, oh, you know what, this is all too much for me, it's just walk out through that red door over there. It'll all be over very shortly. Thank you for your time and goodbye. And we leave it to the person to make up their minds. No pressure. Make
That's
up
an
your mind.
interesting angle. So you're saying, so you're now sort of introducing not a death penalty, which is applied by the state
Mm.
against the prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving the prisoner an opportunity, if they don't want to pay for to stay in prison, pay to stay, they have an option of what, state-sponsored suicide? Is that what
Yes,
that
but
is?
yeah. In fact, the guillotine could have a button and you press the button. So you actually press the button that brings the blade down and cuts off your head. So it's,
I'm not sure many people would.
well, if you're frightened, we'll do it for you. We can put a timer on it. And like if you put your head into the news, onto the block, right? It just starts a timer. So you can't even check it out. Just like, you know what? I've changed my mind. It's just been like, yeah, really?
I'm
so, so
I'm
don't
sure
don't be
there
a
are
wishy-washy
less
person.
inhumane methods
You could
of
have changed your mind before you walk through the red door. You could have
Hmm.
changed your mind before you put your neck through into onto the block. You could have changed your mind before you locked it down. You have plenty of time to change your mind. The rest of us have got lives, man. We want to get on with our lives. We don't have time for your dilly-dallying, wishy-washy attitude, man. You're in this. That's it. Goodbye.
I mean, okay. In all seriousness, I'm sure that's a side option about offering somebody opportunity to end it to
I
save
hope
them
people are
paying.
listening because Tyre's got
Although,
all these
actually,
ideas.
strangely, you should say that
Mhm.
because just sort of linked to this, there's people out who are not in prison who are choosing assisted suicide
This is in Canada,
in,
isn't it?
yeah, in Canada because
Mhm.
they can't pay the bills.
Yeah. Now hold on, hold on. I don't agree with that.
No, I know. I think that's
No
horrific.
civilized society should have people killing themselves because they can't afford their bills.
I
It's
know.
like instead of spending all this money on weapons to go and kill people, maybe we should start helping people over here and rehabilitating them to get into jobs and to look after themselves. So no, I don't agree with that at all. There's something very, very wrong with that. I'm not suggesting that. And I'm not seriously suggesting that you walk through a red door and put your head through the, that's just that.
I
I'm
just
not
wanted to
serious.
clarify this because of your.
I'm not saying that. No. If you don't want to pay room and board, then you get to sleep you get to sleep basically on the floor in a
Oh, I see.
yeah,
So
in
if you'll
a
get, so you've got like a two-tier prison effectively. You've got a a skank area, if I can use that word. So
mm,
those that choose not to pay,
mm-hmm.
they have literally got nothing other than a not even a bed. It's like
Not a
a
bed,
place to
not a
lie
bed.
on, but
Yeah,
that's it.
all of you, as many people as we can get into the cell. You might not have sleeping space. You're all
Mm,
crowded in there. There's a bucket in there, and when you eat, it's bread and water. End of story.
right. But if you pay to stay,
Oh, then you get a proper cell,
then you get a proper cell because
and you
you're
get proper
actually
food.
working
Yeah.
for your board effectively.
And so
In a way,
many of my students
hmm,
probably would benefit from that kind of a lifestyle because they'll finally, for the first time in their lives, be doing something useful and be learning how to work, how to go through the grind of showing up and working. Because any day you don't feel like working, it's perfectly all right. That is one night you're going to spend in that skank area, and you'll be on bread and water. You'll probably be on that bread and water for a couple of days, and then we'll bring you back out and ask you again, so how do you feel about doing some work now? And if you're not working hard enough, if you're constantly sort of messing around and laughing and joking, all right, back to the skank area. If you're more than one, I see this is where it all gets kind of iffy because you're giving the gods a lot of power, and I don't trust people with power. What did Lord Acton say? Power,
power corrupts.
power corrupts. Absolute power.
Absolute.
No, power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So leaving it to gods, I don't know. I haven't really thought that one through particularly. I can see a huge amount of danger in saying to people, well, if you haven't done this for me, I'm not going to
Well, if
sign off.
you're leaving it to individuals, I get that. But if you're leaving it to a group of people, less likely. If in most cases.
No. This is how we've had all these cases of abuses
So you're
in
saying they're all
assisted.
involved in abuse, and
Everyone would
that's where,
get involved
well,
because
that's rare.
eventually,
Let's be honest. That's
well, corruption. This is how corruption sets in. It takes one corrupt person to suggest it. Another person goes along with it, then another person, and then soon enough, you, Tony, you go and join the prison service. You're not corrupt, and then all of a sudden, you get into trouble with the others and threats against your life and everything because the others are thoroughly corrupt now, and they're frightened of being found out. So no, I don't like the idea of putting people into that kind of situation. So this is where it breaks down. Where I feel I don't know who's going to admit how this is going to be administered. If we can find a way of administering it, then I'm happy. I'm happy to go that way. Maybe no skank area. Maybe you just have to work, and if you don't work, I don't suppose there's much to do about it. Really, I don't know.
well, your rations are less, so you're
Again,
paying by food.
again,
Well,
again, you give people too much power over an individual. It's really dangerous when you do that kind of thing.
mm, I tell you the
Maybe if you
is
have to go to
isn't what
court, maybe if you have to take evidence to a court, so you can't just say you didn't work yesterday. You have to actually go to a court with a tape. The judge looks at the tape and then, yeah, right, he didn't. Maybe something like that.
that's too expensive and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
workable.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. Expense. What? You have cameras there anyway,
Well, then you
don't
can
you?
see. You can see who's worked and who hasn't. So okay, but isn't this a? Aren't we going back to workhouses?
Yeah. This is the idea that I really think we need to bring back. Workhouse is a workhouse, but without freedom to leave at the end of the day. That's the prison system. Then I think we need to bring back workhouses for all these louts who are sucking at the teat of the benefit system and not wanting to work. And again, the same thing. I think we give them not money. What do you call what vouchers? Like you do,
Vouchers.
we give them vouchers, and you get your vouchers after you've completed a day of work at the workhouse.
That's if you don't choose to find proper employment. So you
That,
do have to contribute. But the thing is, there's
one way
some.
or another, if you go to, because a lot of these people, what they do, the turn, when I first returned to this country, well, 19 years ago now, or something ridiculous like that. I can't remember. When I first returned to this country and I had to start off where people start off in factories and whatnot, there were people who would come in and they wouldn't do very much and they sort of laze around and all that. And all they were trying to do was just to say that I showed up,
Yeah, of course. There's a
for
lot of
the
people that do that, unfortunately.
so yeah, but they weren't doing anything. So we do need a situation where somebody, again, you show up at a factory and then they don't sign you off, but I can imagine that would lead to trouble.
But the thing
And
is,
some of these people are violent, and you don't want to tell them you're not going to sign
mm, but
the
this is the situation, though, where you shouldn't be rewarded for the time you spent, but rewarded by what you've produced. So if you've got
mm,
a quota, this you need to produce this much of, I don't know, these gadgets in a day. If you don't produce them, then you haven't hit your quota. So
mm,
it's effectively, I mean, the base can be quite low, but
mm.
you've got to at least do some minimum amount to qualify for your food and your lodgings effectively whilst in the prison complex.
Oh, that's a
So
prison complex. Okay, I was talking actually I'd switch to this
I
workhouse
used
and
to
benefits thing.
but workhouses could have a similar thing. And so people would get vouchers if they produced in these workhouses,
Mm.
but based on
Output.
output. Yeah, not time spent.
Yeah.
The time spent is a ludicrous option
Mm.
because it doesn't quantify anything.
Incentivize. It doesn't
No,
incentivize
no.
effort.
It's got to
Mm.
be output. What are you producing? Now, granted, there's going to be some industries that can't be, you can't pay someone based on their, um, for instance, let's say we wanted to extend this to, I don't know, the health service, say. If you only had 5 people walk in to your place, your health service, then you can only deal with 5 people.
Mm.
It can't be on all elements of society if you wanted to introduce these workhouse type environments. But certainly a lot more places could be people benefit by vouchers or money if they hit certain targets as opposed to the time they've spent there. Because time, you have 2 people in the same room. One works hard, one lounges.
Yeah.
They're going to
Yeah.
get paid the same. It's not ideal. You want to measure
Mm. So like
output.
we the so-called Chinese sweatshops, we reverse source them back into the country and into these prisons and so on and so forth, and we bring back production into this country. Probably a good thing.
You see, there's two arguments and two train of thoughts really, and we touched on it before on a previous show about whether society functions better if they get their basic needs catered for. So if everybody got a living wage by not doing a thing, literally a wage. So you could eat, you could live in a house, you could buy the necessities you needed, you know, clothe yourself, house yourself, heat yourself, stay warm. All your basics are taken care of, and you don't have to worry about that ever again. Then does that mean less people will resort to crime? Because normally desperation happens and crime happens when people tend to be desperate because they want something they don't have. But if their basics are already covered by a societal, I don't know, payout for everybody, and I mean everybody gets it, then anything you earn on top is a bonus. And those that want to work more do, they get paid more, and so they get more things in life. But those that are just happy with just living on, with the basics, That's their choice. Does that remove people going to prison because they're no longer desperate, or will we still see prisons filled with inmates because crime happens anyway?
I think you'll find that there's solid evidence, which I cannot adduce now, so don't ask for it. But I believe there's solid evidence that criminality is not linked to poverty. Now, there are poor countries where people are not inclined towards criminality, and there are rich countries where people, well, relatively rich countries where people are. And it turns out that what it is the feeling of entitlement. That is what leads to in criminality. That if someone feels that he or she has not been given a fair shake by society, and they want something that they feel that everybody else has, so why can't I have it? Then they will go out of their way to get it by hook or by crook. So if people feel that they ought to be able to afford things that they cannot afford, even if you're giving everyone the same sort of that living wage, but people look at someone else driving a Porsche and think, well, why haven't I got a Porsche? Then they'll want a portion. So it turns out that if people look around them and see that everyone else is in equal straits, and those who are not, there's a reason why they're not. Clearly there's a reason why they're not. Then that's the one thing. But for the example of Nigeria,
Mm.
a lot of the criminality is this. They look at the politicians and people in power who are ripping off money left, right, and center forward, and they can afford these lavish lifestyles. Well, if I in those circumstances I'm struggling to eat, I'm not really going to worry too much about criminality because I can see how criminality has been successful for other people.
So surely that would encourage you to be against, do things outside the law because you
Yes,
see other people. So
yes,
what we're saying is, I mean, but statistically as well, across the globe, the people who end up in prison tend to be people from low income backgrounds,
yes,
tend to be.
yeah, because
So
they want what they see others have. And there doesn't appear to be a legitimate way that they can get it. So they turn to criminal activity. If you're born in the inner city in America, especially if you're a black person, and there are no jobs in your area, but you live in what is supposedly an affluent society, you live where people are driving by in limousines and whatnot, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I want that kind of a lifestyle too. And what are my options here? I become a basketballer, a singer, or a criminal. I can't play basketball very well. My voice sounds like Tyre when he's singing, so that's a no show. All right,
thankfully, I've
I'll
been spared that.
oh, I can start showing. Yeah, stop. Yeah, you're already in pain, so I'm not going to add to it, man. But you don't want
Okay,
any
but so going back to this idea of prisoners paying their way, and also equally
inmates paying them
workhouses, yeah, inmates in a
mm,
in a prison, but also the idea of
workhouses.
workhouses. Does that give people a sense of self-worth in a way or
No,
not?
the hope is that by making inmates pay for their own stay, it can incentivize them to rehabilitate themselves. They become understanding of a work ethic, and that when they leave prison, they have in a way been trained to be useful workers, and they can leverage their experience to become part of decent society, to put it that way. I was trying to think of a different word.
I'm having a bit of a paddy here, by the looks of it.
You're
My
going, and
lights are
it's
going on
flashing.
and off. Yes, my lights were going on and off. I don't know what happened there,
I don't know. We're not
but
doing
it's
a
fine.
poltergeist. We're not doing a poltergeist show, so
Not that I'm aware of. That's very strange, but we caught that on camera. Like, it's still doing it.
it's still doing. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm getting an electrical problem here because My lights are going a bit funny, but the
No,
static.
it's only your on-air thing. Is
Yeah. For those who are listening and don't know what's going on the back of I've got some lights that are behind me in the studio that I'm in, and they're flashing randomly on and off, which is really quite odd. And we're not doing as Tayo has said, we're not doing a poltergeist show.
Mhm.
So something's gone weird. So oh, it says it's on. Right, let me turn them
Gone
off.
off now. It's gone off
Yeah,
now.
that's gone off completely. I've remotely turned them off. So there you
Oh,
go.
okay. There we go.
Bit of an
Right.
interlude there. Our
Mm.
watching audience thought, "What the hell's going on behind us?" Unless we had real live poltergeists in my home office. So that's interesting. Anyway, back to the topic.
Mm.
Yeah, you see, if you've got inmates, let's go back to because we're talking about inmates in particular. Isn't the very problem with inmates if we started to give them incentives to pay to stay? A lot of people within the prison system are not the best behaved. Let's put it that way. Let's use those
Mm.
terms.
Mm.
Wouldn't you think that they would then decide on a hierarchical system where they'd get the lesser strength people to do all the work for some of the others, and the others will also benefit because of that? That tends to happen anyway. And in doing this too. So for instance, let's say you've got a few people who aren't necessarily bad in terms of crime, they're white collar criminals. So they actually do the work, in other words, to qualify for the arrangement of pay to stay. But the ones who are in for a higher rated crime like robbery, murder, attacks on people, wouldn't they bully these sorts of people and then sort of kick them out of the accommodation so they get the skanky place while
Mm.
the bad guys get to stay in the more not plush but better facilitated prison area?
Well, yes, that's a very good point, and I believe it can and could happen. That would depend on, again, incentivizing. Now, mostly in prisons, I have not been in prison. They haven't caught me. Yeah. But
I hope that wasn't a challenge.
yeah, yeah, they can try it, but then
Oh
I'm
dear.
reasonably confident. The 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 ethos in prison, I believe, is snitches get stitches.
Hmm.
Now, if you incentivize snitching and guarantee they won't get stitching, then you can put an end to that sort of thing. But it all depends on how a prison is run. Because what you've basically said is, can the system become corrupt? And I assure you the system can become corrupt. So the only way to run an incorruptible system is to have incorruptible people running it. Otherwise, there will be these issues, and how are you going to get around them? It's be really difficult. I
Okay.
suppose you could have shifts, so people couldn't. If you put all the brutal people into one shift and the white collar workers into another shift, then like you said, it's based on output. So the brutal people just have to knuckle down and just get it sorted, because otherwise, there's no one to bully to say, do that for me. And
Yeah.
if you've got cameras in situ and you're watching everything, you should have a pretty good idea of who's producing what. And if that person mysteriously has completed, 500 units when you thought, well, I only saw you do 3,
Yeah.
then you can look at the video and then you can, so yeah, I think it can be handled. But again, if the guards are cavalier, they don't care, they're not care, they just don't care, they don't intervene, then all sorts of horrible things will happen. But all sorts of things, horrible things happen anyway in badly run prisons.
Indeed. Indeed. I mean, I want to talk on a different topic very soon, but do you think that prisoners are in prison to be punished or rehabilitated?
I think this works both ways. I think the beauty of this system is that it works both ways. You are being punished, but you are learning how to work. So I'm assuming that if you actually run the system properly, that you will, if someone in there for 3, 4, 5 years, it becomes a habit doing things. They come out of prison and they can get a job and they can hold it down. So I
It
think
depends on
something.
what the crime has been in the past, because there's going to be, despite the fact that this sounds great on paper, there's going to be some criminals who will struggle to adjust because of maybe the background they've come from, slightly disturbed in their attitude towards others, and it's safer for society for them to be in prison. Whether they learn lessons is another matter. We hope that they do, because that's the whole point. But there's going to be some criminals who are, thankfully, they're few compared to the majority, but they can't be rehabilitated. So
No, then we
they're
do
not going
that
to
three.
care.
We do that 3 strikes you're out thing, then, don't we?
What does that mean?
Oh, and is it California started it? I don't know if they're still running because they've gone wacky in California. But in California, there's 3 strikes and you're out. So if you've been to prison twice before, the third time you're not coming back out.
Oh, wow.
That's it. 3 strikes. That's it. We've done our best. We're fed up with you. And we'll never let you out.
Interesting. That's it. That's quite a good deterrent, other than
Was it
literally going
Texas,
to
not
to
California?
Tayo's way of deterring people. The third strike is when you get your um that would be a
I don't propose that because, as you know, you may have forgotten, the reason I don't like the death penalty is that there's no way of redressing mistakes.
indeed. Indeed.
So I'm whenever Ty is talking about the guillotine or something, look, I'm just spouting off, okay?
Okay.
Because it makes my spleen feel better. I get annoyed. I say, kill them all. I don't really mean it, all right? I
I
don't
hope
really
the
mean.
audience have discovered that across the episodes that we've recorded. Okay. I do want to move on to another topic. So let's round up this one. So, your opinion, should prisons charge inmates rent?
I think it's something we should look at and not just look at. I mean, let's give it a trial run. Let's see what the problems are. Let's try to work it out. And if we do work out the problems, I think everyone is going to benefit. I think society will benefit. It will cost less to house prisoners, criminals. It will cost less to house criminals. The criminals themselves hopefully will benefit, and everyone will. Society will benefit. So I think it's worth giving it a shot. Now, if it doesn't work out, all right, it didn't, we did our best. It didn't work out. We stopped.
So, what about debt? Let's say some people went in, just very quickly, went in with very little money. They're debt ridden anyway. They go in and they don't make this work, and they're in a pay to stay facility. Does that means they leave with a bigger debt?
No, because you don't get into debt. The system cannot put you
Right.
into debt because if you don't succeed with your output, you end up in the skank area, as you
Right.
put
So
it.
the skank area is what we would agree as a punishment as opposed
Yes.
to debt. Okay.
Yeah.
That is actually an interesting proposal, because you're right. I mean, I'm not a fan of charging prisoners and inmates for a debt that they will then incur just by staying in the prison. This pay to stay. I'm not a fan of that. But I am, I think that they should pay their way to a degree by working and offsetting their accommodation by producing labor that's
Mm-hmm.
beneficial to the prison
Mm-hmm.
in order for it to profit in some manner. Now, we don't want to get to a scenario where prisons actually will earn more profit by having more inmates. We don't want that, because they will then discourage inmates from leaving if they know they can get cheap labor. So we've got
Mm.
to sort of guard against that approach so that people when they've served their time, they've served their time, they should be released, not held back by the prison themselves, because whilst that inmate has been there, they've worked diligently, they've worked hard, they've generated a small profit for the prison, and they've fulfilled their pay to stay requirement, but they've added a bit extra, because obviously I don't know how the prison would find ways of using the labor from the inmates in
No, it should be returned to the government. So we can't have privately owned prisons. That's that.
I mean,
So
they do in the States, don't
yeah,
they?
but the state system is ridiculous. It's horrible. It's horrific.
Okay.
And so no, I'm just talking about here in the UK. We don't
Yeah.
have we have all prisons run by His
State
Majesty's government.
run,
State,
but
yeah. So then whatever money will be returned to government coffers.
okay.
It's fair enough.
No, interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting scenario.
However, the danger then becomes that punishments for even trivial crimes become harsher because the state was looking for inmates to throw into prison to work and produce income. And I don't know if you're going to be taxing prisoners, because if you tax prisoners, my principle comes into play. You can't have taxation without representation. So right now, prisoners can't vote. But if you're taxing them, then they have a right to vote. And if you're not taxing them, then they're working without paying tax. I don't know if that has any legal or constitutional. Well, we don't have a constitution, but if that has any legal implications, that could be a problem.
It's an interesting topic, actually. Yeah, it's a good one you've picked, actually. So there's no right or wrong answer here, but there's certainly some interesting ideas. And if inmates were encouraged to pay to stay, and they're building up some sort of reserve, it is that responsibility angle. They are giving something back in a sense that
Oh, here's the
hopefully they
thing.
can be rehabilitated.
Here's the thing. Remember you spoke about the profit, that they make a small profit.
Mm.
Well, all right, if they make a small profit, well, on your way out, well, here's your profit that you generated. A little pocket money that's tied you as you go out.
Interesting. There's certainly some mileage here. I'm trying to think of any negative. At the moment, I can't seem to find a negative as to what this would be, but certainly it's something that could be looked at for sure, considering we don't have that in the UK at present. Interesting. Okay. I'd like to hear our listeners and viewers' point of view on this subject. What do they think? Please comment, like we've said before, on whatever platform you happen to consume our content on, or alternatively on our web page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/the TNT Talk Show, no spaces, or even on the TNT Talkers group on Facebook. Yeah,
that's right. Join the group.
Join the group.
Start posting. Let's get this thing. Let's get this thing to be a hotbed of controversy and debate. Healthy debate.
Right. Let's move on to another topic. And this time, question again is an interesting one. Would the world be a safer place if all the nukes were destroyed by all nations?
Before I know I came up with the topic, but I'd love to hear what you because I don't want to give my hand away. Well, what do you think?
Well, if you've still got the same people in power across the globe, then no, it wouldn't make the world a safer place. The only thing it would do is eliminate the threat of nuclear annihilation in the short term, because then you won't have any nukes in order to do that. However, you'd lose the concept of MAD. For those that are unfamiliar of that, it stands for mutually assured destruction, and it's kept the status quo across the globe because each of the nuclear powers know that if they set off nukes, there'll be a retaliatory response and they'll be destroyed as well as the opponent. So no one comes out of it alive, let's put it that way. And that would, and that has, not would, that has kept the peace from a nuclear point of view reasonably well. So people have kept the nukes in their back pocket, and they've had to use conventional warfare to fight any battles. But to answer your question, Tayo, would it be a safer place? No, in my opinion, because you'll then, if we couldn't, okay, slightly different angle. If you couldn't, if you, once they're destroyed, you couldn't create them again. So that means you've got no hope of ever anyone getting nukes again. That's a different, slightly different question. Again, that still wouldn't make the world a safer place, because you'd then get an arms race based on conventional weapons, and there would be a likelihood of countries going back to things like chemical weapons, for instance, or building up, tactical weapons that even more, using more exotic technology that could be used, that, I don't know, like we spoke of before, the HARP system that we touched on in a conspiracy show, where the HARP system perhaps used sound that could damage your opponent as opposed to weapons. So it does it make the world a safer place? It's not the best answer, but in my opinion, no. But would I still want to get rid of all the nukes? Of course. Of course I would.
I think it depends on what you mean by a safer place. You see, I think it would lead to more wars. More people would die. However, the threat of Armageddon that kills everyone, that would be greatly lessened. So the world would be safer, because the possibility that everyone's going to end up dead would, hopefully, unless we allow biological weapons and they get out of hand, but even if you had chemical weapons, then that shouldn't kill everyone.
No.
So apart from biological weapons, then the world becomes a safer place, because we're not going to lose all of humanity. Unlike now, if there is a nuclear war, even if we're not involved, there's a book that I'm currently reading, and the first 8-10 pages is a chapter in itself, an introductory chapter. It's so horrific that I think it should be compelled reading, compulsory reading for every politician everywhere. Everyone in a political office ought to be forced to read these 10 pages. It's a book called Nuclear War, a Scenario. Nuclear War, a Scenario, by Annie Jacobson. Annie Jacobson. Will be in the blurb in this episode. And it was only published this April 2024. She describes in harrowing detail what happens when a nuke goes off. And to put it mildly, it's not fun. And when people understand, because when you and I were growing up, we grew up at a time when we were acutely aware of the danger of nuclear Armageddon, because we had the Soviet Union, we had Warsaw Pact, and we had our crowd, NATO, and these two, what do you call them, military alliances were facing off, and there was always a possibility that something would go wrong and these nukes would go off. So we were aware of the horrors, but we've kind of forgotten. I think as a race, we have sort of forgotten what it means, because the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was so long ago that it's just a couple of names now in history. But if anyone gets a hold of this book and reads that introductory chapter, I will very, very quickly say, I think we really need to get rid of these horrible weapons. When they detonate, it really is true what Tyre says. The lucky ones die first. They are called the Americans call such people D was it DF DFF is it? No DWF. These are DWFs. These are dead when found. So a nuke goes off, and then rescue teams get rescuing, say an hour, 2 hours later, whatever it is. Well,
Be
if you're
later
dead,
than that. It'll be later than that.
well, the ones who themselves aren't dead.
Well,
So,
because
even,
the whole area would be radioactive for a while.
well,
No, we discovered this.
they have tactical nukes that don't do that sort of thing. It's okay. All right, tactical nukes, the neutron bombs to be specific.
Neutron bombs are even worse.
No, the neutron bombs, yeah, but specifically the neutron bombs, it's safe to go there 13 to 14 hours later.
Yes, that's
All
right.
right. Yeah.
But there's no defense for a neutron bomb. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing at all. It doesn't matter if you're in a bunker, forget it. You're
Mm.
gone.
Well,
There's no place to hide from a neutron bomb because the neutron particles are so small, they
well,
penetrate
actually, it's not their size, it's the fact that
inert. No, they've
they're
got no
inert.
polarity.
That's the
Yeah,
word. That's the word.
yeah.
They're inert.
They
So
can go through anything and
that's
they
right. Nothing
literally do.
bothers them, so
No.
to speak. So they go
So it
through.
doesn't matter how far down you are, but
Hmm.
they're very, very accurate as well. But their yield space isn't very big. I was
No,
reading up on
fortunately.
about this. Yeah. They fortunately it's about a 2 mile radius, I think it
That's right.
is.
So that's why they're very good for tactical.
Yeah.
That's why they really work for tactical attack. But again, like you said, it's what 13, 14 hours, so maybe not a couple of hours, like I said, but you're still dead when found.
Yeah.
You're gone. Unlike the poor SOBs who aren't dead,
Mm,
but whose flesh has been burnt off, and all the power's out. No hospitals, doctors are dead. So it's
yeah.
a horrific situation, and no one could wish it on their enemies. I think so. Hopefully, we get rid of them, but well, we're never going to get rid of them. Let's be
No,
honest.
no. The other problem as well with if they're all destroyed, would they be? If you had to leave it, if they found a way of detecting them, say, so they knew where a nuke was, every warhead that's currently in existence could be identified wherever they were on the planet, so they could be eradicated. What's to stop rogue nations or terrorist groups even believing that they could create new ones and then have the upper hand? Because that's what would happen too. So then you'd get rogue nations or groups, terrorist groups in particular, who aren't up for reasoning. They're not up for debate. They
Mm.
just have an agenda. And if they were to get hold of nukes or try and build them because everyone else has got rid of theirs and they know they no longer have any deterrent from the person who they obviously was their original foe, then how do you then contain that?
Well, the Russians weren't worried about someone building a nuke. They were worried about someone. They are worried about someone building a dirty bomb.
Yeah.
And a dirty bomb is just putting radioactive material into a bomb. That's it. And people can get access to these materials. In fact, I've always wondered how we get rid of nuclear waste. Because I some time ago, I can't tell people how. And I'm not going to tell, I'll tell you after the show, but I'm certainly not going to publicize how to find the sites for nuclear waste. But it's not that difficult to find the sites for nuclear waste. So I was thinking to myself, that sounds kind of comme ci comme ça. It's a little cavalier that we have these sites where if people get a hold of just one barrel of this stuff.
Well, it's not as simple as that because that's spent uranium. So what that means is it's dangerous, but you can't make a bomb out of it.
No, you don't
It's
need to make a bomb out of these
no, but
things.
even it's dangerous for its radioactive properties.
Hmm.
So
So
it's not a bomb, but if you got hold of it, you could
water
place it.
supply.
Well,
I mean, how much would you need in water supply to
yeah,
irradiate?
irradiate the water. Yeah,
Good
that's the thing.
Lord.
Yeah, it's the fact that
Horrific.
yeah, it could cause. It wouldn't destroy countries or nations or anything like that, but it would certainly cause problems. But
No, in the River Thames, that would be that for the River Thames.
it certainly would. But there's no fish in the River Thames anyway.
Yeah, but you can't. I mean, how many people live off the water that is brought in? I mean, we take water, our water comes and we clean it and then we drink it. Well, that you know, how'd you clean it from radioactive waste?
That's a good point.
Farmlands.
Hmm.
Good Lord. You can't be eating radioactive food. No, I mean,
It wouldn't irradiate the whole river though, because if you think about it now, they were putting um, some waste in the seas. I mean, look at what happened in the Japan nuclear explosion in the power plant. Now, obviously, that wasn't a bomb, but the
mm,
same principle applied. A lot of the heavy water, how is it's called, that
yeah,
got
leaks into the ocean.
looped into the ocean, and there was many areas that were still
What they've still
contaminated.
got three-headed. They've still got three-headed fish crawling out of the freaking sea. How many years ago? How many years ago was that?
Uh,
And we all know that our Western media, in fact, I think in this case, I'm going to say the global media, didn't want to really talk about what actually is going on there, what is going on there.
but what's
So,
happening in Ukraine from Chernobyl, even today, the area is irradiated, even today, and that was nearly 30 years ago.
mhm.
So there are higher levels of
Although there are
radiation
creatures who have
adapted.
adapted, which is kind of weird, and I think they're
Yeah,
as radioactive as I think those
that's
creatures.
really quite peculiar. Yeah, you've hit on something there which is quite strange that certain animals have got accustomed to the radiation levels.
Are not cockroaches either, because we always felt cockroaches were going to survive.
No, these are
But we didn't think
mammals
we
as
got
well.
wolves and
Yeah,
dogs and things.
mammals
And
and
we're like,
things.
oh,
Yeah.
how the heck? And you're ready. I mean, you set off a Geiger counter from half a kilometer. Well, I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exaggerating, but you set off a Geiger counter, it goes off the scale, and you're just running around and quite happy. It's just like, well, surely you should be dead now.
Yeah.
So
But
we don't.
somehow they've adapted and in a short time span as well. Think about it, 30 years is nothing. So how have they adapted so quickly? But that's a separate one. But yeah, that is not from a nuclear bomb.
Mm,
That's just from a nuclear
a nuclear, a
facility. Yeah.
nuclear
Power
discharge.
plant. Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you've got, you see, I mean, I've told you this before that I've read somewhere before I got my obsidian, so I'm afraid I can't tell you where I got it from. But I read somewhere that we only need to detonate 140 Hiroshima-sized nukes to cause a nuclear Armageddon. That's it. So it doesn't really matter who's shooting at whom. We often talk about America and Russia, but we forget that there's a very strained situation along the India-Pakistan border.
Hmm.
I mean, they really, really, really don't like each other.
I
Seriously.
know.
And they're both nuclear powers.
I know. But then you've got others who we believe have got nukes. We haven't had any confirmation, and that's Israel.
But I think we've had, because I think we've now had confirmation from a a minister. I believe it was I'm not sure it was the defense minister. Excuse me, a minister in the current cabinet as of
Hmm.
today. What is it, May 2024? And he was unwise enough to say if the Iranians were to do certain things, that Israel had the ability to use to nuke them. And then he got himself into a lot of hot water because a lot of people said that means you got nukes. You
Yeah.
just admitted that you have nukes. He got himself into hot water, and I don't think anyone has just. I mean, they just sort of brushed it off, but So yeah, I think we know they have nukes. North Korea we know has nukes.
Nukes.
France
Although,
and
I mean,
England.
the problem that a lot of them have is not necessarily having the nukes, is the delivery system. That's as hard as having the nukes.
Well,
As
delivery system is one thing. I'm sure in Israel's case, I was watching an analysis, and the analyst said something. He said they can't actually use their nukes unless they have accepted that Israel will no longer exist. Because
well, mutually assured destruction. It's the
once
same.
you've used once
Yeah.
even if you use it on Iran, that doesn't have nukes, no, after that, no one, not even America, no one is going to be on your side.
No,
It's
no one.
all over. You're done. It's
Yeah.
finished. Everybody goes, nope, sorry, that's it. So you can't actually use the again. It's like we use it. It's mutually. It's a form of a threat if it's not used. Once you've used it, this is the good thing about nukes. Man, good thing. This is what we've been
The
depending on
positive.
so
Yeah.
far. The positive side about it is that no one can actually use it because once you've used it, once it's out of the bag, so to speak, once the cat is out of the bag, that's it. It's no more deterrence. It's all over. So even Russia's threats, I think, have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Hopefully,
Mm. But that's the thing. It's the unknown element. And that's why it works.
yeah.
Because you've got them, you can use them as a threat, but would you actually use them? It's
Well,
that's the
if
thing.
you use them, you've lost.
Yeah. Everyone has lost, and there's no point. Why?
Mm.
If so it's a cumbersome way of working, but then it's the same. Gosh, we're getting to the close top of the hour, but um it's the same in this situation in the Far East with Taiwan and the US and China. They use that ambiguity to keep everyone on their toes because they don't know. China understands that the US, say the um, one country, two states, is it? Or I can't remember the term they use, but
One country, two systems.
two systems, that's it. But America still give them Taiwan money to defend itself. It's like,
Mm.
hold on. But they say, oh, no, no, but Beijing is still the head. So,
That would be like China arming separatists in Texas. I don't think America would like it much, or
no.
take it as one
No, I
country.
understand. I
It's
totally understand.
hypocrisy.
But
The thing is this:
the difference in your analogy there, Texas are not have not said to China, oh, by the way, we don't want to be part of the US. Please help us.
well,
That's
not yet,
different.
not yet. We're
Taiwan,
doing a show on that, aren't
well,
we?
yeah, but Taiwan have openly said to America, please help us. And so there is a slight difference in that
Hmm.
analogy. But you're right, it wouldn't be something that the Americans would be too keen on if that were reversed. Yes,
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not sure. I see a nuclear war between China and America. I can even a conventional war be kind of stupid. How's America going to conduct a conventional war against China on the other side of the ocean? This is no longer the 1940s.
no.
It's a whole new ball
Mm.
game now. The industrial might of China far, far beyond the industrial might of America. Back in the 1940s, 1930s, and 40s, it was the other way around. America's industrial might made China look like a rickshaw workshop or something. So I think rickshaws are in India.
But yeah, you
Wrong
know what I mean.
country.
It's using very basic technology if at
Yeah,
all. Yeah,
yeah.
but now they've
So,
caught up and surpassed it,
so,
and they've
so
got the manpower to ramp it up should they need to. So
like I was saying in the other show, I believe they said that America produces 80,000 artillery shells a month. Russia produces 200,000 artillery, 200 to 300,000, is it? No, 200,000 artillery shells a month. And China can produce a quarter of a million a week
wow.
if they want. See,
Hmm.
yeah, 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 you know.
Yeah,
So
there is
who's
difference there.
even what are you nuking them for? Why? Nah, I don't think that's a problem. I think it's India
Okay.
and Pakistan, we've got to watch out for, and someone doing something stupid in Europe.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you want to put nukes in Poland, but every time someone says that, you then have the reverse of some people coming up and saying that's stupid. People you don't expect stand up and say no, that's stupid. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It all seems to be
It's a lot. You see, a lot of that is for,
posturing. I think.
yeah, it is posturing. It's saber rattling because you're doing it in public. Behind the scenes, a lot does go on that we don't actually get to see. So yeah,
Georgia Maloney surprised me by coming out in point blank and saying the idea of sending troops
is no go.
to Ukraine is ridiculous.
Yeah, it
Not
is.
only that, she's fighting now, and it looks as if she's winning, which is another big surprise. Italy is pushing NATO. It looks like they're going to release a statement in their June meeting. June, I believe, is June. The next meeting is in June. They're going to release a statement, and their official position is going to be no NATO troops in
Ukraine.
in Ukraine. However, someone said we shouldn't be that excited because all it means is that Western troops in Ukraine will not be wearing the NATO flag. That's all it means. It's not, they're not saying no Western troops in Ukraine, they're saying no NATO troops in Ukraine. So take it as you like.
I'm not sure about that. It's a bit like this French garrison from the Foreign Legion.
Yeah.
That they're not French technically. They're everybody else's nationality going, but yeah. Okay. And it's a small number. So anyway, let's go back on point here because I want to wrap up because we've reached the top of the hour. So going back to your question, would the world be a safer place if all the nukes were destroyed?
Yes.
Okay.
Armageddon, the possibility of Armageddon would vanish.
Indeed. But would the world be a safer place?
Well, like I just said, the world won't be destroyed. However, there'll be a lot more wars, but possibly between the two superpowers or the three superpowers. But that'll be their problem. Because it'll be conventional warfare. Right now, the wars between the superpowers are everybody's problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the political landscape would change, security landscape would change for sure. How it would change, don't know.
No.
But certainly there would be massive uncertainties. So yes, from a nuclear annihilation point of view, yes, if all the nukes were destroyed, that would be a good thing. But somehow it's almost like better the devil you know, where yes, we'll be safer from a nuclear war if they were all gone, but the status quo is working, even though it seems a bit disrupted and there's ripples and bad blood at times, it's still working. So this mutually assured destruction seems to be holding everything together until the aliens come, of course. But then I have to throw that in again.
Well, never mind aliens. What about this video you sent me? Tyson DeGrasse.
Tyson DeGrasse, yeah.
Saying,
It wasn't him. That's someone on his page. It wasn't him. Oh, which one are you talking about?
The one where
the
he says
video
that
where he's talking.
It says an asteroid is headed this way.
Oh yes, in 2029.
So if we don't have any nukes, it turns out we need to stop the asteroid, then that could be problematic to say the least. So having nukes will help.
Will help in that instance, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just so people are aware, in 2029 there is a asteroid. It's not a world killer, but it's enough to cause a problem.
It's be uncomfortable if it hits. Especially if it hits you. That'd be really uncomfortable.
It's not miles big or anything daft like that. It's what did they say it was? It was about 100 meters.
A building, maybe like a building, like a skyscraper,
something like that. Yeah, but it's coming closer to us than the moon is to us. So it's coming within our moon and Earth distance, and it will be just where our geostationary satellites are, and that's close. So we'll be able to see it in the sky glowing, and that's in 2029. Now there are plans to bump it using technology to nukes, perhaps, or some technology to bump it out the way?
Look, the people on the bump it team. I don't care whether it's sexist or not. I don't want DEI people doing the calculations, okay? I don't care if it is straight white men who are going to do it. I don't care. I just want people who went to school, know their freaking maths, and actually got into their positions due to merit. This isn't one of those DEI kind of things, man. You get this wrong, there'll be
We're in
the
trouble.
consequences, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Mm.
Anyway, we we'll end it there. Unfortunately, we could talk at length, but we have reached the end of the show for
Mm.
another week.